Welcome to PSY 307, Study Session 11, Defining Rehabilitation. Introduction. The aim of this lecture is to introduce you to the concept of rehabilitation, as well as to help you to understand the principles of rehabilitation. This knowledge will help you to differentiate between the principles of rehabilitation and its objectives. At the end of this lecture, you should be able to 1. Clearly define rehabilitation, and 2. Discuss some principle of rehabilitation. Content. Charlotte Green-Swartz consider the number of current statements variously identifying rehabilitation. 1. As the services, techniques, or organization of efforts to bring about functional restoration of a patient. 2. As the process by which handicapped persons improve and develop their personal equipment and capacities for satisfactory living within their environment. 3. As the restoration of the handicapped to the fullest physical, mental, social, vocational, and economic usefulness of which they are capable. 4. As human adjustment of the whole personality. 5. As reintegration of the individual into the community. 6. As the restoration of creativity, ability, and definition of rehabilitation are so generalized that it is difficult to use them in program planning and development. In 1959, Bertrand Black, a pioneer in sheltered workshop services for the mentally ill and for many years the director of the Ultra Workshop in New York City, describes rehabilitation as aimed at returning the handicapped person to as much usefulness in society as his remaining capacities will allow. Douglas Bennett, an English psychiatrist long concerned with rehabilitation, subscribes to a definition he attributes to Frank Cooksey. Rehabilitation is the process of enabling a handicapped person to make the best possible use of its residual capacities in as normal a social context as possible. Somewhat earlier, Bennett, Wing, and John Derman formulated the definition of rehabilitation as it applies in the rehabilitation of long-stay schizophrenic patients. They refer to rehabilitation as any activity which aims at preventing or reducing secondary handicaps or at developing compensatory mechanisms for irreducible primary or secondary handicaps. One of the best discussions of rehabilitation which was encountered is a report of the proceedings of a conference on psychological research and rehabilitation, sponsored by the American Psychological Association, APA. Lofquist posits that whatever definition of rehabilitation a particular person or group favors, perhaps all will agree that 1. Rehabilitation is concerned with practical problems in the lives of individuals. 2. It is concerned with past, present, and future individual behavior, and with assisting an individual to find an optimal balance of this which will permit living as well as possible within the handicaps imposed by disability and within the potential development described by the individual's particular balance, sheet of plus and minus ability, aptitude, interest and personality factors. 3. It involves active interprofessional participation in planning with and for the individual. On the basis of the presently available observable definition of rehabilitation, psychology and conceptual empirical findings, it is worthwhile to draw our attention to the principles which Swartz identified among a number of rehabilitation experts These principles will help to guide disabled wards or persons with disabilities in our institutions, homes, and our hospitals. These are given below. Principles of rehabilitation. Based on the present available observable definitions of rehabilitation and empirical findings, it is worthwhile to draw our attention to the principles of rehabilitation process. SWAS identified among number of rehabilitation efforts that will help us to sustain rehabilitation measures in our institutions, homes, and hospitals. 1. Patient and encouragement of their health status. 2. Encouragement of the patient to accept as much responsibility as he can handle at present, giving him as much freedom and room for spontaneity and as he can manage, though at the same time providing him protection from his own impulses and a feeling of security by a firm, tactful, consistent, and reliable response from the staff members. 3. Those who are attempting to bring about the rehabilitation of the client or patient must determine his existing ability and then develop experiences which fit in. 4. There appears to be general agreement that in order to work effectively with clients or patients, personnel must accept presently functioning level of the client. 5. Alertness to the patient's needs and attempt to fulfill these needs with attitude of giving without demanding any return, that is, not using the patient to fill the staff's members' needs. 6. Affection and intimacy, personal interest, concern, empathy, and understanding. 7. The object of participation with the patient is to move him from the level at which he functions to the next level of functioning. 8. Respect for and acceptance of the patient and his present way of functioning, including his lack of fitness. 9. Approval, reassurance, the support for what the patient is able to do at the moment. 10. An interpersonal relationship of warmth and trust must be ensured so as to enhance or increase the sense of competence. 11. Desensitization. This will help individuals to lose their fear of uncertainty or situations. 12. Attempts to understand the meaning of the patient's behavior. Summary. In this lecture, the concept of rehabilitation has been examined. We learned that the way we and others understand rehabilitation can have a fundamental effect on what we are prepared to do and why, in overcoming the difficulties that disabled people face on a day-to-day basis. The principles of rehabilitation were also examined. End of study session 11. Thank you for listening.